one of the things that Malcolm X talked about, the mainstream media.
Yes.
We can make the victims look like the criminal, and the criminal look like the victim. And we suffer from that a lot of times in terms of the information that we get. So we appreciate your input, sister, but we're gonna move on in the program. We're gonna continue. This is just an event. All this stuff is gonna be continued to be discussed after this is over. And this is one of the things that we believe in our organization, All African People's Revolutionary Party. So now, next up, Brother Mike Ridley. All right, Brother Mike Ridley is gonna do a presentation on building independent African media, controlling our own narrative. And can you give a round of applause or welcome? He's a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Brother Mike Ridley.
Greetings. How we doing, everybody?
Well, African, well.
My name is Michael Ridley. I'm an organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And my job today is to try to talk about the necessity of building an independent African-centered media. And I'm gonna go off script in what I plan to talk about a little bit from the previous conversation with Sister Carolina, who was making some excellent points. Sister Carolina was talking about us being African and indigenous people identifying with some of the same hardships that we went through. Losing our native tongue, losing our history and culture, and these sort of things. There's so much history between us and indigenous people that's not told. When we talk about slavery, we talk about those slaves that left the plantations. Well, where did they go? How did they know the landscape? A lot of times they went to Native Americans, for help. There was a relationship throughout the Americas where we worked and organized alongside and struggled and fought and died alongside our indigenous brothers throughout the Americas. And that story is not told. Why that story is not told is because we don't control our narrative of our history. We have to understand that we do live in a world where there's a battle of ideas. Who controls the ideas to control the political education of the masses. And that's why it's important for us to build some African-centered institutions that promote our history and culture. Now we know that slavery, when we was broken, when they took us out of Africa and they took us into the West Indies for slave breaking, that they separated us from our history and culture. They separated us from our African self. They separated us from our normal relationship and how we interacted with each other. And the only thing that's going to solve that is political education and organization. We have to be able to use our history and culture as a weapon. Okay? I'm going to talk to a person that meant a lot to me. I had a mentor once. I used to go over his house, and we used to get into talking and conversating. A lot of times these conversations were going for hours. And normally what we talk about is the strife and the struggle that our people go through and other people who suffer under capitalism and who suffer under imperialism. And we'll be going back and forth about how we don't control our political power, how we don't control our economics, how we exploit for our labor and oppress. And he used to guide us to a question. And the only question that really matters, the question is, what is there to be done? That was a question that he was always posing. What do you and I do to liberate ourselves and make sure that this doesn't happen again? So as we had these conversations, this conversation will go to another conversation. And this conversation will deal with mission and purpose. He used to say this. He said that every generation has a mission. Either they will fulfill it or they will betray it. And I used to ask him, I said, okay, what is this generation's mission? He said that this generation's mission is to build institutions. that allow for us to organize and politically organize our people. That is important for us to do, is to build institutions. So when you talk about the concept of institutionalizing anything, that requires us to see ourselves as a nation of people with a shared identity, vision, and destiny, in a shared culture. Dr. Clark said this, Dr. John Henry Clark, he was talking about the worships of slavery. He said in a speech, he said, one of the worst things that slavery has done to us and colonialism is that it took us out of the process of building nations and maintaining nations, having a nation perspective where we take care of our wants and desires. We have to build institutions. And one of the institutions that we have to build is the media institution. I grew up in the 80s, right? I grew up in the 80s. I remember none of us had a computer. The first time one of my friends had a computer, I was like a junior in high school. He's like, man, I got a computer. I go over there, and y'all remember the computers back then, the dial-up. Yeah, and they had the noise sound. 15 minutes, you finally online. I remember that day. I remember when I first got a cell phone. I was out of high school. I was about 19. I got this Nokia cell phone. I was so proud of it. Now I got a new cell phone. I got the wood grain cover. I used to put it on my belt. I thought I was doing something back then. But that phone didn't have internet access. It was black and white. It just was used to connect people. I did not envision a time where the internet and this phone piece of technology would come together, and that this would be one of the tools of political education that our enemy uses against us. Right? We have to take control of social media. We have to have an African-centered perspective that's out there. Right now, our enemy is out there. I mean, he got all type of apps, he got all type of entertainers to take us away and to leave us confused. This thing right here, we have to learn how to build curriculum on this thing. Like if I was to ask you a question, right? If I was to say, what do y'all think about education? What is education? A lot of us will say, well, it's curriculum. We'll say it's school buildings, it's institutions, it's religion institutions, it's tutors, it's teachers, it's pastors, it's good home training, all these things. And all these things will be true. But we have to be able to encompass that our kids are getting educated and the mass of people getting educated by these things. How was the last time that somebody sat down and watched the 6 o'clock news? Anybody can report the news now. And we have to be able to have our history and culture and turn it into a weapon to educate our people, right? I jumped around, so let me see what we get back on track. So there's a brother by the name of Dr. A-APRP. He has a couple of books out that I read. One of his books is called Know Thyself. The other book is called Community Itself. Now in his book, what I like about this book, he talks about the necessity for our people to see examples of Black excellence. He talks about Europeans in their history books inside their school system, they're always seeing examples of European excellence that make them want to continue to add to that excellence. And he said that it's something that happened to us when we don't see ourselves represented in history. And he said that we need to see examples of this, and that we need to create institutions where we need to see examples of this. Malcolm said, he said, if you want people to love Africa, we got to show Africa in a different light. And that's got to be up to us. Like I was mentioning earlier about our relationship with indigenous people, our struggles with them. Who's going to tell that story? Our enemy going to tell that story? No, our enemy is not going to tell that story. We have to tell that story. There's a lot of stories that's untold. Right now they control the narrative of slavery. Now anytime something comes out about slavery, there's always some redeeming European character. If it wasn't for this character, we would still be in chains. Yeah. They control the narrative of our history, of our struggle. Can you imagine the European Jewish community allowing for some non-Jewish community to tell the story of the Holocaust?
It's true.
Could you imagine that? Could you imagine Europeans allowing us, other people that's non-Europeans, to tell the story about the rise of Rome and Greece from a perspective that is not their own? No. Oppressed people had that in common. Our enemy tends to tell their history and culture. And we have to be serious about building institutions. And we have to be serious about utilizing technology to build political education. Now, I don't want to go on too far because I got to show clips and we're kind of behind the 8 ball. But I got a couple of clips that I want you to watch. These are clips that the party has done on Venezuela and on Zionism. And they're about 7 minutes each. But I just want to show you the capabilities and why we need to create curriculum. And now we can do it.
Here's the funny thing about Venezuela, and you would have to know about Simon Bolivar in order to understand what's going on with Venezuela today. Now, Simon Bolivar was someone who was attempting to eradicate slavery in Venezuela. Now, to his credit, he went broke doing his revolutionary excursions, if you can call them that. But when he came back after the revolution was won in Venezuela, he came back and he still had some slaves. Don't get it twisted, don't get it wrong. But he was one of the few of the former Spanish elite, because he was Spaniard, that released his slaves. His compatriots didn't do that. And so what he actually did to not only liberate Venezuela, but liberate Bolivia, liberate Colombia, it was a few countries that he did that. He was directly responsible for Now, we come into present time, and it's Chavez that we're looking at in terms of revolutionary activity in Venezuela. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Chavez always, from the very beginning, maintained and claimed his Africanness. But not only his Africanness, but his indigenousness, if you could call it a word. But even still, and I can't remember the Spanish word for it, but basically he would call himself Black and Indian in Spanish words. Of course, you can Google that and look it up. The thing though is that Chavez knew this from the time that he was democratically voted into office. All right, and I want to make that clear. I want to get all cameras. He was democratically voted into office. Okay, and there was a coup. I want to say it was in 2002, maybe, that people came, kidnapped him, and took him out of office. All right, that's pretty much what happens. It was the people. It was the people who came down to the presidential palace and said, hey, we want our guy back. Now, in the ensuing years of our brother Hugo Chavez, he made astonishing reforms. Astonishing reforms. He cut poverty down by half, by 50%. Like, I think it was close to 50% poverty that Venezuela was in, and through his reforms and what he was doing through his, socialist reforms, it was cut by 50%. So it was 25% basically, around that number. It's around it. Now, he not only did that, he also empowered women. Like in Venezuela, being a housewife was considered to be a job. And so you got paid for it. In Venezuela, getting gas was literally 12 cents a gallon. In Venezuela, healthcare was free. In Venezuela, education was free. So this whole thing that's happening in Venezuela, we have to understand the history of America and Latin America. And here's a particular point that I want to speak to, because this is the crux to everything. Venezuela, and I'm looking at all cameras here, Venezuela has the biggest oil reserves in the world. Nowhere else in the world is there bigger oil reserves. So you get a clear picture of my America when it brings up democracy now? Yeah. It's the oil, dummies.
I got one more. I'm up against a minute. I told I got 5 minutes, so I'm gonna let you see this next one on Zionism. And I just wanted to show you the capabilities, the type of stuff that we should be trying to invest in.
Yes, I want to talk about the struggle against Zionism. Kwame Ture told us that the struggle against Zionism is the cutting edge of the revolution today. And it's reflected in what's going on internationally, not just in Palestine, occupied Palestine, because the Zionist movement came into being in 1897, and it became an integral part of the imperialist system with the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, and even before that with the expulsion of the Palestinian people in the late 1800s from what is now occupied Palestine. So what the imperialist states did was they used the European Jewry as a tool to create a forward base for imperialism in the world, in the region we call the Middle East. So the European Jewry, who began to become focusing on creating their homeland via the Jewish state as written by Theodore Herzl. They got funded by the European imperialist powers, and they began to take the Palestinians' land as early as the 1897 founding of the World Jewish Zionist Congress. Fast forward to 1948, the United Nations legislated that there should be a Jewish state, or the state of Israel rather, created for the European Jews who were the victims of Nazism in the land that the Palestinians lived on. And so they condoned the removal of the Palestinians that started as early as 1917 and was codified in the Balfour Declaration in 1918. So they established the legal semi-colonial state of Israel. So they've been fighting to take the land back since the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948. And so today, you have the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which was started by several Palestinian organizations. And the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement is similar to the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement that was created in Zambia, South Africa, which undermined the economic strength of the apartheid government in South Africa. And by the way, the apartheid government worked in close alliance with the illegal settler colony of Israel, who worked closely with the illegal settler colony of the United States of America in this unholy alliance. So the Palestinians, through their struggle, have created the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And those of us who are revolutionary Pan-Africanists, we have to support that movement. We have to show international solidarity because the Zionists not only affect the Palestinians, the Zionist movement has its dirty hands behind the oppression of Africans in Tanzania, behind the oppression of Africans in Sudan, which they overthrew the government. They made the president resign rather in Sudan, although it's a military regime. And they have their dirty hands in the spying on Martin Luther King and the assassination of the leaders of the United States government, like John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy. And they have their hands in a lot of imperialist work. In other words, they are the running dog lackeys of U.S. imperialism. When the imperialists need somebody to do dirty work, the Zionists train and or carry out assassinations worldwide. They poisoned Yasser Arafat, and they did other things. But now today, they're in danger of being displaced. And the current president of the United States, Trump, is trying to show solidarity with the Zionist state by declaring Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel last year. And also by declaring that the Golan Heights, which is part of Syria, is now part of the legal settler state of Israel. So we have to double down on our support of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which is a threat to their power, especially in the U.S., where you have 26 different states who have passed legislation to declare that you cannot boycott the state of Israel. In other words, companies that want to boycott the state of Israel is against the law. And also, if you protest against the state of Israel, you get a $100,000 fine and a certain amount of time in jail. So here you have the U.S. government protecting a foreign government where the right to protest is part of the constitutional right of the people, is in the US Constitution, that you have the right to protest and boycott, to gain freedom. So this is the hypocrisy of it.
I'm gonna cut this short. This is, over. This is gonna be downloaded.
Oh. I'm biased.
I would say this, we gotta start creating curriculum, creating programs ourselves. And we have to do it with our own money. Malcolm X said, when he wanted to destroy an organization, what you do is you put a bag of money on the table and a list of demands. You pick up that bag of money, you know you got a friend. And then you see that happening a lot in our culture, like with hip hop. They've been pumping money into it, so what do we have now?
Crap.
And that's by design, though. It's definitely by design. All right,